15 May 2022. Today, we're going live on the Josh Tan Show. And happy Vesak Day, just to start things with. And just to share a bit, I actually went into JB very recently via the second link. And what I can share with you is that the customs still seem very quiet. You know, when I went there, there was no queue at the causeway. So I actually succeeded in reaching Aeon Mall in Bukit Ina within 45 minutes, I guess. So if you're looking for a trip, these few days are still quite quiet. But once we get to June holidays or the long weekend, this one, I guess it might get still crowded. And if you're thinking of a trip into Malaysia, I can also share with you. When I went to Aeon Mall, it seems like it was still relatively quiet. About 30% of the shops have closed down permanently. So the mall still needs some time to rejuvenate because, you know, Singaporeans are the ones that spend the most in Malaysia, correct? And with us not being around, some retail outlets have folded, but I still see my Popular over there. I still see my, what do you call it, Tea Garden over there. So I actually go to JB quite a bit last time also. So hopefully that information helps you in one way or another. But today we have a case study on someone who is looking to get married. And just in case you are also at this phase, then maybe this whole podcast can help you. As always, if you are keen to have your questions answered, look for my links below. Send me a sound clip on your case study and hopefully we can all discuss and share things that can be useful in your journey. Now, this question, let me read it together with you. I have little to no savings, but I'm looking to get married in 2 to 3 years' time and to migrate overseas where my fiancé is. My fiancé just switched career and thus doesn't have much money. I recognize that wedding, marriage, migration are all huge expenses. I'm very worried that I don't have enough to tide through. I began some budgeting, but I feel lost. Now, this is a situation of someone that's living month to month because little or no savings, correct? And later I'll share with you the exact amount that she's earning, but actually you can see from the thumbnail, she's drawing quite a good income, whereby we'll review the details in a quick while. But my first suggestion is that if you are also in this phase, living month to month, it's actually time to change. Of course, you can see on hindsight, if you had started saving early, you wouldn't be in such a predicament. But as always, we do what we can moving forward. There's still a lot of time to make positive changes. So if you are living month to month, maybe I'll start with that. A few key points. You must break that cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. It's very worrying. And once you have a big dream coming up, like a marriage, you realize you're not on track. The worries start to come in. Then you have stress. That is not a good start to build, a couple's relationship with. So break that paycheck to paycheck cycle, especially if you are on a full-time job, you are gainfully employed. The first step to breaking a paycheck to paycheck cycle is track your expenses. Track what you're spending your monies in. And from what I've seen in details that she has sent to me, I guess she's really past that phase, which is good. But if you're at this phase, track your spending. Look at your GrabPay payments. Look at your credit cards. Look at how much you're drawing out from the bank. Then define them as a next step. Because when you define each category, I spend so much on transport, I spend so much on dining, and the bulk of it is alcohol, then we can create suitable budgets. So these are very simple steps that, somehow we understand it's important, but when it comes to execute, we are sometimes sloppy. And therefore, this podcast, I'd like to reinforce the importance of that. And just to add on a further third point on this breaking paycheck to paycheck cycle is get someone that you are accountable for and tell them about the situation. Hey, dear, or hey, mom, I am not saving well. This is my plan. Now, when you bring someone in to the equation and be accountable, then that's where you realize that you're getting serious about things. If not, you can get away with underperforming. And we don't want that to happen. So once you have a new habit, then that's where you can start to relax a bit more on things because you've gotten the foundations correct again. So if you agree, again, smash the like button. And as always, if you have questions along this discussion or point of views, do leave in the comment sections. I'll try to pull them up also. She's also mentioned that she's looking to budget for that wedding. And she's looking for something simple. But of course, at this juncture, there's very little chance to do something extravagant also. The target she shared is about 40,000. Honeymoon, some furniture costs, as well as wedding costs. So this amount, 40,000, wow, if you are at a young working adult phase, just started working, 40,000 seems like a lot. But once you are at my age, 30 plus, work for many years already, 40,000 is actually a very savable amount. I'd like to reassure anyone that is just in the workforce that 40,000 is very savable. You can get there when you really cut back on your expenses. There's no magic. Cut back on expenses, be very prudent. 1 year, 2 years, you really can get there. So it's no magic at all. But my question to you is this. If you want a down payment to a home, $400,000, of which 200,000 is you, 200,000 is to your fiancé or spouse, then 200,000, you can't save it up in a matter of time, correct? That pain becomes unbearable. That pain becomes something that you can't reach even for 3 years, 4 years. That's why don't wait until last minute before starting to save, before starting to dream big. Because once you realize you can't solve it in a few years, you can give up on it. Or worse, you go into debt. You take on big loans. You start to feel that it's not important to build the right foundation because you want shortcuts really. If you need to wait 3-5 years, might as well I find shortcuts. And very often those are debt-related shortcuts. So coming to here, I'd like to suggest a few things. In financial planning, always forecast long term. When is your house going to come? If you're age of 25, I want to buy a house at 35 or 30. Start now. Start planning a budget. Learn the numbers required because once you forecast long term, you have years to build it. And when you have years, you don't need to rush and make mistakes. But for her case, the first hurdle is this 40,000. And I'd like to urge also each and everyone to think longer term. 40,000 is solvable, but the bigger problem is the house. That will come in at some point of time. Coming to here, also, for anyone looking to get married and the funds are just not required because marriage also has a certain timeline, correct? We cannot be naive about it. The window is there. Get married. I'm saying don't wait forever, get married. It's a phase in life. Then maybe I would like to mention this thing which is a little bit uncomfortable, but we're discussing any avenues to expand this whole solution base. Ask the family for a loan. I repeat again, ask the family for a loan for the wedding. You know, it's very important to open the dialogue of borrowing money early. You know what stings? What stings is when you say, hey, I need money urgently. I need 40,000 next week because I don't have money. That stings. That makes anyone annoyed. I can assure you on that. But if you're transparent and if you tell your parents, for example, about it, that, hey, I haven't been saving well. I'm willing to be accountable to you now. I do need possibly 50,000. Is there a chance you can lend me 50,000 end of next year? You get the tone? One is, hey, I'm in trouble. Come and rescue me. One is, I forecast that I may not have enough. I might need to borrow from you. Can I understand? Is there a chance? You get it? You know, sometimes for parents, it's very difficult to open dialogue of money also. From a parent's point of view. Because you see, right, when you see your kid doing well, you assume that kid is earning well, financially okay, seems better than you, your 50,000, you better don't be too intrusive. So very often parents want to help, but don't understand that there's a problem. So you get it? So as a young couple, if you don't have enough, I strongly suggest check out your sources of borrowing, especially family-wise. Be open, be transparent, be accountable. Because if you tell, hey, dad, I need 50,000, but I'm willing to do this. I'm just forecasting numbers. Could you help me? It sounds very possible. And you know, banks, they don't lend money last minute to people who are desperate. Banks lend money to companies, to businessmen who can forecast long term. And they give a sense that they have a plan on how to repay. You get it? Always borrow money when you're not urgent. Know your sources of borrowing at least. I think that also leads to a second part on having dialogue also with the spouse. Because from what we can see is that spouse is also switching career and doesn't have much saving. So both are very late in this whole game of saving, or both have not been prudent. So it's time to change, and one cannot change with the other still stagnant. You get it? Change together. Because a lot of times money needs to align. One spend thrift, one doesn't spend thrift, there's friction. So align together. Start dreaming together. Maybe that's where we are snowballing thing. As a couple, open the dialogue. Do joint accounts. Set long-term goals. If you need a house, let's save towards it. Be open in dialogue. Very often, you realize that there is a lot more belief together that the future will work out. A lot of times, couples get into financial trouble because they don't know how to open up this topic. Dating is fun, but once you see each other's dirt in terms of managing money, that's where certain friction comes in. So especially for young couples, I even heard of organizations, religious organizations, going through financial discussions with couples. there is definitely some merit to it. If you do not open the dialogue, I don't know, get someone to be inside it or through a financial planner to really open up this dialogue and see each other's books and make joint dreams together. Now, we have first question coming from Eric. Josh, what about people who are sales-based and have fluctuating income ranging from 2,000 to 7,000? Is there a certain percentage you suggest to save? No, I'm in sales also. And the trick about sales is always, since I'm in this circle, always build up the consistent base first. That gives someone assurance, like the fixed base pay. You work in a bank, you have that base pay. So that base pay gives a lot of assurance. For me, I'm on full comp, but I view my business with a lot of recurring sources. So that's my base. Once you have a base, that should be way bigger than your core expenses, correct? Which means if you have fluctuating income, save as much as you can. I don't want to put a percentage to it because we don't know situations. But for myself, I'm saving at least 70%. Yes, at least 70% on an annual basis. Paychecks can increase, can be 1 month bigger than the other, but always save as much as you can. And as long as your base is bigger than your core expenses, the equation is not difficult. You don't have stress also. You don't chase sales with a stress. Then whatever big cases you bring in, save that hard, invest that hard. Hopefully that answers the situation. Find a base level of income, keep your expenses below base so that you never run out. If 2 to 7,000, then keep your expenses less than 2. Fantastic already. If your comp is 7,000, save that 5,000. You get it? So jumping back to the case. And as always, if you have questions like Eric, do share in the comment sections also. Let me share with you what has been mentioned also for a case that why is she not been saving well? Because that's when we talk about having dialogue, correct? Ask your parents about funding. Ask your family about funding. Then next step, start planning long-term with your spouse. But then also when you plan out, you must be transparent, and it's good to see numbers. 30-year-old for this case, take home pay of 7,200, pretty decent. Engage and exploring migration, something I've mentioned already. 900 per month in savings plan and 400 per month in insurance. Now, since I'm in this industry of financial planning, I can share with you that committing $900 in total to 2 savings plans is probably not a good step. This has been bought already. Too late to change. And then you sell the plan to nowadays they have companies that buy endowment plans, but they buy it still at a loss from you. So you do lose money. The best is don't step into big savings plans that are especially super long term. The premium payment for this is 25 years. So for anyone thinking about buying a savings plan, I strongly suggest you narrow it in 5 years or 10 years premium payment, so that in future when you have a kid, you have new expenses coming on board, you don't run with that 900 per month commitment. It ties you down a lot. So 900 is depending on situation, but I don't like 25-year savings plans. I think that shackles the ability to grow finance very quickly. If you need a savings plan that's 900, limit it to 5 years, then finish paying, then you do investments and stuff. In any case, Singapore savings bond rates have been going up. I've shared on the main channel before. Right now, for 10 years, you get an average of 2.53%, if I'm not wrong. Therefore, use it to measure against savings plans. But Singapore savings bonds work for lump sum better. Savings plans, you can put 100 per month. Singapore savings bond is if you have a bonus coming up, 10,000, then you buy Singapore savings bond. So get it? So there are solutions coming on that are higher interest. I've shouted before, Singapore savings bond rates will go up very likely because our overall interest rate is going up with inflation. So back to the topic, 900 per month in savings plans. Ideally, don't take up big, long-term savings plans. In any case, if you bought already and you have children, I also suggest that you view some of your long savings plans as your children's education plan. Fair enough? Because if you bought one when you were just starting working and now you have a kid, maybe it's going to mature in 16 years. Actually, it's just nice. You don't need a new savings plan for the kid. You envision it for the child education and you can do investments really. So that's something that I also would strongly advocate. You don't need to duplicate one savings plan for each person. Need not be. If you bought, you shape the objective of that plan to a new circumstance. Then 400 per month in terms of insurance. That depends on the insurance plan. I've asked before, there is a whole life plan that seems pretty expensive. So with that, I'll drop this in the comment sections. I actually do suggest start with a small whole life plan and build your insurance portfolio. And since we're on the topic, let me suggest why also. Buy term, invest the difference relies on you to invest the thing well. There are pros and cons. Buy too big a whole life plan ties in too much of your money, which means 400 per month. She doesn't spend 400 per month, but a large portion of it. So my best of both worlds is small whole life plan. Have something that costs 100, 150, and then the rest in term plan. So the whole life plan is a permanent insurance, especially when you want to project any needs that are unforeseen. A whole life plan works because it's coverage for lifetime. Then you layer on term plans. As your pay increase, as your liability increase, you stack on term plans. So that is a separate topic. Follow that article. I'll leave in the comments section below for you to read and understand a bit more. And once you have a whole life plan, don't buy any more whole life plans. You just need one layer and the rest term plans. So hopefully that answers the question well. And as always, any questions, do leave in the comment sections. Then we also see 1003 to family. I guess that suggests that family relies on her income quite a lot. So all the more there's insurance requirement because she is a breadwinner for family. 1003, I actually don't give that much to my own mom also. So, but different family, different circumstance. So for her case, she has to contribute quite a bit to family. And that leaves personal expenses before the net savings. Now coming to here, I would like to ask you also, if you're not saving well, what's your best guess on your savings ratio and as well as how much you're spending on personal expenses? Because there's fixed expenses, there's certain personal expenses. And what I've came to understood is 500 per month is spent on Grab rides at least. That is fundamentally a red flag in a lot of ways. Because you see, right, when you take Grab rides, taxi rides, very often is a solution to a problem because you are late, correct? Unless you can get reimbursement from a company. If not, you're on your own in that cost. It's very understandable that if you had taken public transport, you could have saved that $10 easily in terms of a Grab ride. Actually, $10 could be way too little. I don't know the cost at all. But it goes to show, it's all related to habits. You can wake up earlier, you can save that cost. Because in finance, a lot of ways is regarding this. There are very few $100 or $1,000 buckets that you can cut back on. But there are a lot of $10 buckets you can save. I repeat again. There are very few $100 and $1,000 buckets you can pull back on. But there are a lot of $10 you can save. You can save one Grab ride. You can save one restaurant meal. This is $10. This is $10. You realize you can net save $300 more per month. So in a lot of ways, personal finance is a lot of small choices. And you realize, actually the solution is not, I don't do this, then I get a big savings. It's not. It's usually a habit and it's compounded with very, very small decisions. And every $10 would add up, and very soon there'll be an extra $300 or even $1,000 in surplus. So that leaves a net savings of $2,600, which is very decent. And I did check that is only eked out recently. So you see, once you go through your budget, once you go through an analysis on expenses, you kind of have a wake-up call. Every wake-up call is not too late. You know, I've even friends who are doing exercise every day because they have ran into high cholesterol issues. I'm age of 38 already. So these things are really coming up. But we don't want to wait until wake-up call. You don't want to wait until you have cholesterol, diabetes, then you start living a healthy life. Same with money. You don't want to wait until you need to buy a house, then you start to save. Not good. You can make changes today, and hopefully this podcast advocates the right message. Start the change today if you're not saving well. Look at how much you're spending. Then you realize, actually, if I cut, I can net save $2,600, and I can maybe park $500 for retirement investments. And speaking on the topic of investments, because she's mentioned that she's investing $500 per month. You know, right? Investments cannot solve saving needs, which means if the wedding cost is $40,000 in 2-3 years time, it cannot be work backwards. I need to save this amount per month with 10% investment rate to reach $40,000. It cannot be done like that. Investments need to be from surplus money because we cannot control markets. Right now, markets are in turmoil. These are good times to buy, but in general, these are generally good times to buy. But when you have not enough surplus, you realize you are investing money you can't afford to lose, then that's very problematic. So again, savings can solve saving needs problems. Use investments for long-term goals. Use investments to build big wealth. Fair enough. So once you invest that, you can invest aggressively. Then that's a much better way to do things. Use spare cash. Now, let me round up a few key points. And as always, any questions, leave in comments. We'll round up today's discussion with something important. Oh, at least in this case, I came to realize also that there is no car expense, thankfully. Okay, because if there is a car expense in Singapore, it's going to cost quite a lot of money. Cars have a lot of hidden costs, which means that a family, in my opinion, having a car is at least going to spend 1,500 net in maintenance, parking, depreciation. And I realize a lot of families are not prudent with the car choice, because once you buy a car, you only upgrade it. So if you haven't bought a car, be very wary also. The first car, if you really need to buy something simple. Because once you start with an Audi, you cannot go back to a Honda. It's not like that. So for cars, there are big expenses. And every stage you want to upgrade a car is natural. So keep the start small and buy only if you need. Then for cars also, if you buy a new car, the depreciation is very steep at the first few years. So a lot of times we see cases where they buy cars, new cars every few years. Then that's where money is actually lost. So luckily for our case over here, there's no car expenses. If you are just working, try to delay that as best as you can to a later stage. So let me round out a few key points that I have to share with you today. This is where we are at. The first point is, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, break that cycle. That is not healthy. Just now, Eric mentioned about why for someone with a commission-based structure. Also, keep your expenses low so that any good months you can invest that amount freely. Make sense? So break that paycheck to paycheck cycle. Your expenses be lower than your fixed pay. You're good already. You can save up money. You can save up bonuses. Second, start forecasting long-term needs. You can save 40,000 very easily, but you can't save 200,000 very easily. There is a difference. And you don't want to miss out on those goals also. So as a couple, bring each other down together, start looking long-term. Any long-term goals that can't be fulfilled, start understanding your sources of borrowing also. Those are things that we've covered in this whole discussion. The third is be accountable and borrow early, something I mentioned. Hopefully it's a realistic solution, but not every family is the same. Not every family has resources to tide through also. And the fourth is be transparent and open as a couple. Can't stress this enough. Finance is one of the biggest sore points that can tear couples apart. So make sure there's alignment, make sure there's transparency, and make sure that everybody comes down to the table accountable to each other and build the dreams together. So for myself also, I communicate daily, I think, with my spouse also on where we're going to. 5 years later, where do we see ourselves living? 10 years later, do we need a different house because our schools are different for the kids? So these are things, be very comfortable discussing money with your spouse. And last but not least, savings, not investments, are the right solutions to build up your first base. And always invest your surplus. You'll find the investment journey a lot easier to tide through. So hopefully these are 5 key points that you take away from today's lesson. And as always, if you have a question, do leave in the comment sections, and do drop me something of your case, and I will discuss in the next podcast. Thank you for watching to here, and I'll see you next one. Take care and goodbye.